أهلا بكم. مع احترامنا لكل
Welcome
القوى السياسية
back.
والنخبة
We
والمثقفين
respect all
والزملاء
the
الإعلاميين،
elites, all
ومش
the
هنسى
media people,
النشطاء
all
السياسيين.
the
أنا
political
بكل ثقة
activists.
وبكل تفاؤل
I do
قادر
respect
أقول
all of
إنه
you,
بعد ما
but
استمعت أكثر من مرة لكلمة الفريق أول عبد الفتاح
after
أمس، لا
having
صوت يعلو على
listened
صوت التوحد من أجل
to
محاربة
the speech
الإرهاب
of Mr.
ومش
Fattah
وقت
al-Sisi yesterday,
النكد
so
على الأبواب
we should have
والمظاهرات
just one
والمواقع.
word
ده داخل أرض الوطن
facing
فقط. الإرهاب
this
شفناه
terrorism. We have seen
عايزين
terrorism
إيدينا في إيد
this
الحكومة
morning, so we have to put our hands in hands of police and military forces. We don't have to pay attention to anybody from those who like to create and generate divisions among our military forces. This morning, 25 soldiers have been killed by the terrorism. One of the police officer has been killed this afternoon by the terrorism. Some of those say that this terroristic attempt was a response of the Muslim Brotherhood who have been killed yesterday, or it would be a response to the popularity of Mr. Sisi, or for having the military forces have arrested Muhammad al-Zawahri, the brother of Ayman al-Zawahri. And this morning, Mr. Farid Deeb said that who go against judges always lose. Or when Mr. William Hague said that our influence over Egypt is very limited. And I agree with you. I'm proud of our independence, that we do not follow anyone. Okay, no other alternative. We should stand hand in hand by the side of police and military forces. We have arrested 2 of the Al-Qaeda organization in Matruh, west of Alexandria. Our big men, our great men from the police. Okay, just minutes ago there was a speech delivered by the Mufti of the Republic, who condemned all these killing operations, etc. We have Dr. Abdullah Nasr. How did you listen to the speech delivered by His Excellency the Mufti? This is a word of a man who knows how blood is valuable, facing and confronting a terrorist group who don't like to know that the homeland and the flag of the homeland are valuable affairs. Now on their page they are very happy for the killings of the 25 soldiers, as they were not their brothers. And I think that if it was the Israeli forces, they would not celebrate what they celebrate now. They don't have what the meaning of homeland. They are completely misguided. They don't know how to perform. They think that they are men of God, but they are not the men of God. They are guiding people to kill each other. And we know that in our Quran and God, Allah says clearly that we shouldn't kill. This is one of the clear orders of Quran. They will be accounted by God in the other day. I don't know why they did kill them. If this is the Islam that we know, no, I don't think so. We know that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, when he refused to kill Abdullah ibn Abi Salul, who was one of the famous hypocrites in Medina, but he refused to be killed. and he said that I don't like to have the saying that Muhammad kills his companions, but I would say that those are more bloody than the infidel and the atheist of the non-believer of Quraysh, Abu Jahl, when he slammed Asma, a daughter of Abi Bakr. He was ashamed by that, and he told that don't mention that before the Arab, because that was a big shame. And now they are, we have groups are killing people, killing Christians, Muslims, and they say that the Islam is the solution. What kind of Islam? This killing a bloody Islam? No, we don't like this bloody Islam. What can we do? But the problem that we lost our tribunes, and we left them reaching to the different members of the mosques. Thank you very much, and we hope that the good religious leaders come back to our mosques. Our religion is religion of peace, is a religion of passion and compassion. It has nothing to do with massacres. It has nothing to do with killing people, etc. The first news this morning was very sad when 25 soldiers have been killed by a terroristic group, and later on in the afternoon, one of the police officers has been killed as well. Now, General Muhammad Zayat. Good afternoon, Mr. General Zayat. What do you think about that? What are the reasons behind that? If it has any interpretation, we know that this is it could be a terroristic response. The speech of Mr. Sisi yesterday, for example, or the killed the detainee of the Muslim Brotherhood, or for having arrested Muhammad al-Zawahri. I think that terrorism in Sinai does not require any kind of justification. Over the last few weeks, the military forces and the police forces have imposed their own presence inside Sinai. Some of these terroristic elements belongs to some of the famous tribes in Sinai. We have a problem because they acted their violent actions, and then they ran away, usually getting into their own villages. But in the last 2 weeks, that the decisive confrontation will come. And the most important thing is that we have detainee Muhammad al-Zawahri. He is the engineer of all these operations. He's been to Sinai several times, and he was trying to escape to Gaza yesterday, but he failed. Those who have been killed yesterday from the Muslim Brotherhood, we cannot take any kind of preventive measures, because the police trucks are always going over the roads. But I think that the coming days we will eradicate completely these elements, either those who live in the caves of Sinai, or those who live among the villages in Sinai. Okay, the next point is the emergent meeting of the EU ministers next next Wednesday. Mr. Muhammad Arabi, His Excellency the Ambassador, and the former Minister of Foreign Affairs, but the contact was cut. We have the Front Salvation member of Front Salvation. Okay, Mr. Ambassador Muhammad Arabi, concerning the attitude of the EU, do you have any updates? Okay, good afternoon. The youth language today is different. It is more moderate language, dealing with the situation in Egypt, and I think that with the diplomatic efforts and other efforts of Saudi Arabia and coordination between the two sides, will reach positive results, and we will proceed to our destiny. We will not come back from this roadmap, and this war has been imposed on us by these terrorist groups. What do you think? What is happening now on the ground from the pro-Morsi supporters? This operation this morning in Sinai, 25 soldiers have been killed. Shooting everywhere, weapons everywhere, a lot of videos, a lot of pictures, shooting people in the streets. And the police station of Kirdasa and these terrible photos, all that is not enough to change the attitude of the EU countries or the Western media or the Western countries, etc. The attacks on churches, etc. That sounds a little bit strange, because remember that 10 years ago, 5 years ago, when there was any attack over any church, all the Western media started to incite all countries and all organizations, etc., to criticize Egypt. I think that after the operation of today will reinforce and strengthen the attitude and the efforts of our diplomatic institutions, departments, and the popular diplomacy as well, etc., etc. After the incident of this morning, after the operation of this morning. The issue was how to incubate these terrorist groups, but the idea of the Western countries was to incubate all these groups here in Middle East and to keep them away from Europe and from United States, but they failed, completely failed to put this conspiracy in practice. Okay, how do you see the attitude of Malaysia? They would like to send a delegation to see the situation on the ground before withdrawing all their citizens living in Egypt. They're aware of great cooperation between Malaysia and the Muslim Brotherhood. Italy sent some planes to take back their citizens from Red Sea because they refused. The tourists themselves, they refused. The image in some countries that Egypt is burning and that we have battles across streets, etc. But when people come to see the reality, to see the truth, and they do see watch the natural life and the everyday normal life, they are more calm. And thank you very much, His Excellency Muhammad Arabi, the former Minister of Foreign Affairs. Back to the statement of Salvation Front. Engineer Hussam Al-Kholi, member of Salvation Front.
مهندس حسام.
Mr. Engineer Hussam.
اهلا وسهلا. عايز اعرف كمان ما الذي توصلتم اليه، يعني ايه النتيجه اللي
What is your final statement before talking about the Salvation Front? The Salvation Front is composed from political parties, and the political parties from the beginning of this conflict stated that we are pro military forces, we are pro Mr. Sisi, we are pro this interim president, we are pro this interim prime minister. Do not forget that we have this problem comes from the period of Hosni Mubarak, when during this period, this last 10 years of Mubarak, the tunnels were open because it was kind of negotiation cards with Hamas or the Palestinian authorities when it could be needed. But when Mr. Morsi came, the tunnels were extremely open, and the tunnels started being a source of wealth generation for a lot of traders, even the drug traders and the drug dealers. United States, we didn't know that they were conspiring against us in this way, and that's why the international reaction is it sounds strange, because remember that when we had any attacks over the churches, we used to have a lot of problems with the Western media at that time, during the 90s or 80s or etc. But now we are talking about more than 30 churches have been attacked. Okay, but as I said, that it was kind of terrorism by proxy. In this case, we can get all the Muslim Brotherhood and all the Islamic groups in the Middle East and to proceed their own conflicts among their own people. That was the plot. So the massacre of this morning, I wouldn't say that this is Muslim Brotherhood. No, this is a very well-armed organization like Al-Qaeda. But how they did reach Egypt? When President Morsi supported Syria during that conference. And we remember what is happening in Al-Dab'a land in Marsa Matruh. There were a lot of interests between the Muslim Brotherhood and some of these armed organizations. The Front Salvation, like any other organization, like any other group.
They have an interest with Israel and the United States of America, but thank God last year a lot of faces were exposed, not just outside but inside as well. So if this year and the previous year is something, and the past couple months I think is another thing, you had like unusual, a lot of faces that talked and everything and were there, and this confrontation, if it wasn't there, they will be dormant cells, they will remain. This year God was kind and generous to Egypt and all the Arab countries. Even the cells, the dormant cells that were in the United Arab Emirates were exposed. Egypt would have lost if these dormant cells were not exposed for years. Also, the unusual confrontation with the terrorism made the Egyptian people not just love their country. We already loved their country, but it's the love, your love of Egypt, and the fighter in 1973 loved Egypt, but do you feel the difference? He sacrificed his life. He knows what is Sinai and it has more value. Now we all feel that way. Everybody's sacrificing something. Your time, your security, your money, but everybody's sacrificing. So the love, your love of your country increases. Our love of our Christian brothers increased. Our police, now we love and appreciate police officers a lot. And the army, of course, this is another story. And this, the first stage or phase in that is to build the country really. When there is a demonstration by a certain group, certain demands by a certain segment, we say, no, you have to work first and build the country. Thank you, Mr. Hussam Al-Khouli. Amazing opinion. And I have the big writer Yusuf Al-Qaid with me on the phone. Good afternoon. Mr. Yusuf. Mr. Yusuf, the first thing I want to ask you about is did you follow the incident in Rafah? When is it going to stop? I link that to the incident we slept after last night, the deportation of some prisoners and trying to have them escape, and they die. Now 25 soldiers, they were going to their homes, to their villages, because they finished their term, they finished their obligatory service, and then the traitors reported and that they are at the station traveling, and they came and killed the soldiers. I don't want to talk about negligence or carelessness, because anything about negligence will not benefit anyone except the Muslim Brotherhood. But I need to say that the armed forces and the police, especially after the scene that did not happen before in Egypt, when the police officers and the armed forces officers and the soldiers as well joined each other and listened to the word, very important word by Major General Sisi. What he didn't say, and I'm saying it as a civilian, we are in a war against extremism and terrorism. We are in war, not anything else. And this war might take time, might dwell, but we need to be alert, and we need to realize that this is a fatal war. This is about the destiny of Egypt. Either we have a modern civilized state or we have no Egypt at all. We need to be very careful, and those who were in the station, the bus station, need to consider that the tip of a nail of a soldier, an Egyptian soldier, is worth our lives, and we need to defend it. There are a lot of sayings that started last night, that there is an initiative between the remnants of the Brotherhood and the Egyptian state. And I'm not against initiatives, but we have to end the war first and then sit to see what to negotiate. I'm against this negotiation, but maybe they have a bigger picture than mine. Maybe they know something I don't. But I need to say that on Friday was the beginning of a victory, a true victory after Al-Fatih Mosque. That was a true victory of the Egyptian state against them, and a true failure of theirs. And when they say, I want to talk and negotiate, so I have to at least demand. What would be demands to start decide to negotiate or not to negotiate? Number one, Ms. Reham, is that those who escaped, who are wanted by the law, they need to give in themselves, and they need to surrender. And they speak in channels, satellite channels in Al Jazeera, and they make phone calls. So the first thing, they need to surrender. That's the first thing. Also, a top thing is to stop the violence. What the state is doing is just a reaction of what they're doing. They have to stop that. Today, they wanted to terrorize the Egyptians, and they said, we decided that our marches would be at night, so we break the curfew and break the prestige or the image of the Egyptian state. Last night they had 5 marches and they canceled them. The only one that moved is the one that went to Constitutional Court because it didn't receive the instructions. The Security Council was meant to confer, to decide on dismantling the Brotherhood, the group, but it was delayed. Egypt is more important than anybody, and Egypt is more than all. And things need to be clear. Transparency is much needed, and from media, from everybody, because they're realizing the failure of Al-Fatah Mosque and the popular reaction of their very bad performance in their demonstrations, the bloodbath they're swimming in, and we have to take the opportunity. Egypt is more important than the group and from everybody, and it's the one that will survive. It's more important than the 86 million. Egypt is what remains. And everything related to Egypt, we have to deal with it with the most seriousness. I don't want to dwell on you, but I want to tell you what we did with the 25 soldiers that were murdered today. Do we get them to Cairo and have a funeral, or do we invest in that in all the languages of the world and in front of the whole world and have it as a national incident? Yes, we need to do that. And the Abu Zabal battle last night, the people need to know the dimensions and what happened in that, and they need to. The 38 murdered ones were, I heard that they were with the Brotherhood, murdered by the Brotherhood themselves. We need to know that, and we need to tell the world that with all the languages. Till when we're going to talk to each other and explain to each other? We have no problem and we have no division. All of Egypt is against one group, and Egypt is standing with the Egyptian state, with the prime minister and the interim president, and the police is also on the same side, so we have to deliver our voice to abroad. Today, for example, the European Union assembled, and next week they're going to assemble on the level of on a ministerial level, and they go home with procedures. And the United States of America, they try to sneak some news to terrorize us that they're going to stop the aid and they can interfere the seventh chapter of the Security Council. And so we have to speak the language of the world, and we need to realize that we're not divided from the inside, and we are with our armed forces and our government and our police, and with everything that Egypt needs to go out with the least losses, because we're in front of a group that said that we either rule or burn, and we don't mind ruling it while it's burned or while it's dust. This needs to reach everybody, inside and outside, but I'm saying outside first, and this is critical. The last thing, the Brotherhood made a deal with one of the PR agencies, big US PR agencies, and it said that they paid $300 million. That's why when Gihad al-Haddad wanted to speak with CNN, he speaks after 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Sky News as well. Why don't we think about something like this? Why would not the state or the businessmen or the civil society or those who own private channels or anybody in this state, why don't you find a PR agency if we cannot deliver our voices, if our diplomats could not? What's wrong with doing something similar, something like that, and start doing this now, not tomorrow? I think we need to do that. I think your call is live and reached everybody. I hope it finds somebody to catch it and respond to it and turn it into reality. Thank you, writer Yusuf Al-Qaeda. I have Major General Talat Musallam, the strategic expert. Good evening, sir. Good evening. I'm not going to say that we are going to beat terrorism in one night, but how can we learn from the crises that we're undergoing? I'm referring to what happened today in Rafah. What happened today in Rafah is a painful thing, but its signs are more dangerous because it proves that we're in real war against terrorism, and this war is against an alliance of some organized criminal groups, terrorist groups that has trained personnel, and the aim is to control and invade Egypt. I believe that the incident of today would have happened either today or any other day, with Abu Zabal or not, with the speech of Abdel Fattah Sisi or not. Those who did that today studied the area and the region and studied the police movements and their forces in Rafah, and he studied also the numbers and the resources and the procedures. He had intelligence, and they gathered this intelligence and information for a long time. It didn't start yesterday, and I think the decision had been taken for some time. It was not the Sisi or the Sisi's speech or the prisoners or anything. It's just terrorizing the Egyptian state. So we are in a war against terrorism, combating terrorism, and we're dealing with a terrorist group called the Brotherhood, and in war there is mobilization for all the resources of the state to face the enemy, and therefore we need to mobilize all our forces, the people, the government, the army, the police, to face this terrorism and overcome it. And it will be a restless war, and it might take some time. And we could have ended it very quickly and shortly if it was just internally, but there are a lot of foreign parties and resources coming, and we saw a lot of people arrested from other countries, not just from Arab countries, but European and Asian countries, and we are facing an international terrorist organization, not just a local terrorist group. Thank you, Major General. And we have an urgent piece of news. The leaders of Ministry of Interior are heading to the funeral of Rafah martyrs in the police mosque. I have Dr. Abdullah Nagar, the member of the Islamic Research Center. Dr. Abdullah, actually we are in much need of such big figures and scholars who understand the forgiveness and the tolerance of Islam. What is your the role that you have on the coming days is really big. What can you do to regain and re-embrace the people who are deceived by those who speak with the name of the religion and pushes them to violence? First, I'd like to deliver my condolences to the families of the martyrs today and the martyrs of any Egyptian blood that was spilled. And I hope God embraces them in His mercy and inspire their families and all the Egyptians with patience. And I pray for God to help us overcome this crisis and that the Egyptians return to the true and correct understanding of Islam. As for the role of Azhar, Azhar combines the best scholars, Islamic scholars in the region, and God selected them to be those who inherit prophets and messengers in their task and assignment. And this is our mission, to call people for God and to show them the righteous path in worshiping God, and to save them from the mental occupation that turns them into things and takes away their choice, and the choice that God honored the human being with, the choice between evil and good, between belief and non-belief. And He helped him choose and rationalize and weigh things so they don't become a tool of vandalism. I'm calling for every young person on the land of Egypt to respect his reasoning, and worshipping is just for God, obedience is just for God, and God provided you with reasoning to lead you to goodness and to righteousness. And it's not of the principles of Islam that somebody cancels your brain and that you deliver yourself to a person who takes you to evil. This do not match with Islam and not the dignity of Muslims. If the man delivered his brain to another, whoever this person is, it's someone who takes your dignity away, the dignity that God had provided you, and he makes himself a thing to be moved around without having a will. He is like the imbecile, the person who is unaware, and God honored a person with a will. This is our message and our mission, and we will not save an effort in conducting it. And I would like to tell everybody that Al-Azhar is the safe place of Islamic preaching. Al-Azhar has no relation with these worldly conflicts, and it is interested only in Islam, and it's not biased to a group against another group. It says the right words, hoping to please God, and it does not compromise, and it does not go around. And with this honest word, and Azhar will remain like this until the judgment day. And I consider every scholar of Al-Azhar, if they went outside, this means they cannot be of the scholars or an Azhar scholar especially. Al-Azhar scholar appreciates the mission of religion, and he knows the impact of a word and the impact of speaking about God. They cannot exploit what they have of knowledge to support or to be biased to a group against another, or to allow for blood, or to produce fatwas, to issue fatwas, and something to divide the society. Those who divide the society cause hatred, and hatred is worse than murder in Islam. Those who take that side are not just scholars, but they do not fit for Islam. Those who go to satellite channels and call themselves scholars, God scholars, these are people who mislead people, and they stand against them seeing the truth. And I warn people against those who are in the satellite channels, who kept on being shouting in the satellite channels. These are the people who corrupted the brains of people and made people blind from the real life and the true understanding of Islam. I warn people against these people, that they corrupt, they destroy things, they are the true murderers, and they take away the will of the people, and they lead people to evil, and they need to be avoided. People need to be cautious of them, and every person needs to respect his own reasoning and will, and you have to differentiate between what is evil, what is good. That's why God gave us reasoning. It's not of religion to listen to somebody who's misleading you and go and kill and destroy and vandalize. You have to be wise, you have to be reasonable, and you have to fear God, and you have to know that any evil that happens on earth and any sabotage or killing is not related to religion. You cannot kill anybody with the name of religion, and people need to be warned. Thank you very much, Dr. Abdullah Nagar, the member of the Islamic Research Center, and God bless you and all the Islamic scholars, the tolerant Islamic scholars. I have Mr. Muhammad Al-Aziz, the coordinator, the liaison officer of Tamarrud or Rebel Movement. I would like to start by giving my condolences to the Egyptian people and the police for the terrorist incident that took place today. The situation that, as we said before, and we keep on saying, we're not facing demonstrators or protesters, we're facing terrorists. Systematic, organized terrorism against the Egyptian state. We had raised a call to list it in the international list for terrorism and terrorist organizations. And if the Muslim Brotherhood want to return to before the 30th of June, and this is impossible because the Egyptian people that went out on the 25th of January in a popular revolution, eternal revolution, demanded social justice and national independence, and the Muslim Brotherhood stole this revolution. So the Egyptian people went in a scene that is the best and the most amazing in the history. There is no returning back. The principles and the values of the 25th of January that were strengthened by the 30th of June are untouchable and innegotiable, and we're not going back, neither before the 30th of June or the 25th of January. And if you want to use terrorism and to return the people, you're delusional and you are committing political suicide. The Muslim Brotherhood did not go into enmity with a rebel movement only, or even the political powers, or Major General Abdel Fattah Sisi. They are going into enmity with the whole of the Egyptian people, with all its strata, from Sinai to Upper Egypt to the Canal, all geographical zones. And if you go to an enmity with the Egyptian people, you will fail and you will lose. This great nation that faced everybody and succeeded until the Israeli enemy. And if they wanted to remain in this darkness, political and religious darkness. If they're talking about Sharia, the main purpose of Sharia is to preserve lives. And if the blood of Egyptians are spilled that way, and they carry the responsibility and the burden of this blood on Judgment Day, so these people do not represent any legislation or any religion or even humanity. The point that I would like to say is the exposure of this group in front of the world. Every person who's responsible for Islam, the king of Saudi Arabia, Al-Azhar, they said we're innocent of these, and these do not represent Islam. They represent organized terrorism, and this cannot win with any means. Those who stand for Sharia cannot be the EU or the USA and all the countries that try to pressure Egypt and take away its will. If they're talking about that the Muslim Brotherhood are Sharia, how can be the people who are Sharia, the people who inside John McCain specifically, and who is known for his fanaticism for Israel? He said Jerusalem is an eternal capital for Israel. How can a man like this be a supporter of Sharia, and he's the one who's defending Morsi and the Muslim Brotherhood the most? This is an global planning to fail the Egyptian state, and I accused them of treason because they called for the foreign powers, because Sam al-Haddad is an example, but the Egyptian people is not afraid of the Brotherhood or the Americans. The Egyptian people cannot be forced to do something they don't want, and the situation we're in is very similar to the Arab integration in 73. The position of the King of Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, all the Arab countries except Qatar, are standing in support of this great people, and this great people will win, and the hopes they went for will be achieved. And any delusional person who thinks that he can return time, this is not gonna happen. This Egyptian people will, this great people will not fail. Thank you, Mr. Mohammed Al-Aziz. And we have an urgent piece of news. The detain of Mohammed Morsi for 15 days with the accusation of instigating on the incident of Ittihadiyya. I have Major General Mohammed Naguib, who was a former director of the prisons sector. We have two incidents today and yesterday related to some posts you held in the past, and the murder of the prisoners and the assassination of our soldiers in Rafah. First, I would like to give my condolences to the Ministry of Interior in its martyrs today and earlier, and I would like to endorse them and shake their hands and decide that they are the safekeepers of the nation, and they are in a mission. They're not in a job. What's happening for them right now from those criminals and extremists, Islamic extremists, that we have to not call them Islamic extremists. They are just extremists. Egypt is facing global terrorism. It's not a local terrorism. Some of those extremists were called by the Muslim Brotherhood and other Muslim groups, and some of the sheikhs that we thought to be respectable and care about the nation, although their living and their residence in Qatar led to the fact that they sell the state with few dirhams, and they will get what they have harvested. The Ministry of Interior provided more than 100 hundreds of martyrs since the beginning of this awful war from the Islamic organizations like the Muslim Brotherhood. They are all extremists, and their religion is violence, and they work in violence. That's their job. They do not choose peace. We called them several times, more than one time, to peace and to the participation in this nation. And if you had votes, as you claim now, you have to go for elections, but they rejected and they refused and insisted on spilling the blood of the youth of Egypt and the blood of the youth of patriotism in the north of Sinai and inside Egypt. There is one of these officers who was murdered in Rabaa al-Adawiya, and I was surprised that the bullet he received is a sniper, and he wore a vest, a protective vest, and this bullet exploded in his body more than one piece. They are using an illegal, internationally illegal and banned bullets. If you're carrying weapons, and they're carrying not just weapons, they're carrying weapons and ammunition that explodes inside the bodies of our youth, the patriotic youth of Egypt that wanted to protect the identity of the Egyptian state. And the Muslim Brotherhood, who this goal and who this man goal who said Egypt and what happens in it, Erdogan, stay in your country and worry about your country. This is our country and we can do whatever we want in that. It's not your support of terrorism. I saw a conference today run by Al Jazeera conference, and it has Muslim Brotherhood, and they're said to be called the civil powers that reject violence. And this conference failed because some journalists, honest journalists, who said to them, you are conveying an erroneous, a wrong picture in order to smear the image of Egypt. All these things echo in the Egyptian street with all the support of the armed forces and the police forces. These martyrs of today and all the martyrs of Egypt are sons of respectable, patriotic people. And this led to the grudge against all the extremist Islamic groups. Some people were sympathetic with them. It ended, this sympathy ended. I assure you that the general intelligence and the military intelligence and the national security and the public security are doing their best to end this awful war from the forces of extremism from all around the world. Thank you, Major General Mohammed Naguib. We'll go into a break, and after the break we continue our coverage and reading with my guest, Dr. Tariq Al-Ghazali Harb, the surgeon and writer and thinker. Thank you. Welcome back. We continue our live coverage, and my guest is Dr. Tariq Al-Ghazali Harb, the surgeon and the political thinker. I would like to give our condolences to you and to ourselves and to the Egyptian people in the soldiers who died. How did you see this incident? I was shocked in the morning by a message about the incident. Tried to see the news, but as you described it, it's a cheap blow. It's they are victims, and they were reported because they were wearing civilian clothes. They were wearing ordinary clothes. So the way they were killed, the way they were murdered, as you saw the videos about the incident, to stand in a queue and they are shot from the back and they tie their hands and the bullet to be shot from the back to, and it reminded me exactly of what happened in the massacres of Egyptian soldiers in June 1967. I lived back then. You might have seen videos or something, but pictures it's of the same sort. So we're dealing with an enemy that is not less ferocious or evil than the Israeli enemy. So what happened today, we need to... This assures what I said, that we are short in working with the organization of the Brotherhood and these currents that came outside of it. When they threatened to burn Egypt, we did not... You said that in your article, and the complete amputation of the Brotherhood is the only solution. We always heard these things, but we didn't take it seriously. And I compared them to a tumor, a cancer. The cancer sends metastases, and it goes everywhere in the body, and the more you leave it, they keep on sending these messages and parts to other parts of the body, and therefore the complete, we call it radical excision. This is the first step to solve this, to treat this cancer that Egypt has, which is called the Brotherhood. And I'm surprised. And at a certain period of time, I believe that they are a political sect, that they need to be included in the society, and they have a certain point of view in how to manage the country, and they had tainted it with an Islamic tint. And I always objected on their naming them the Muslim Brotherhood, because calling them Muslim Brotherhood means that the others are not Muslims. And I heard a lot of things about the Islamic project and the Islamic political parties, and there's no such thing as a religious party. The religion is for people, but Islamic is not. It's a pretentious adjective, and it's meaningless. And to call something Islamic means that the other thing is not Islamic, starting from when we had this phenomenon like Islamic banks, the Islamic schools, and we swallowed all of that, and they exclude, these are exclusionary categories. Any other bank that is not Islamic means that it's an evil, or it's not, it's against. And this cancer spreaded, and the burden falls on Egyptian government starting from Anwar Sadat's era, because they left this disease to spread, and they left it open to religious education that is not disciplined and not controlled. The number of people who are listed in religious education is higher than the number of the public education, and this is a disaster. So it increased a lot, and I wrote in an article that the first thing that we need to go for after winning this war and this battle and getting rid of them from the Egyptian arena, we need to dry the sources and the wells that expand such thoughts, because this is the more important issue. To dry these sources is the thing that we ignored and neglected, and we left a lot of the Azhari institutions. They're called or under the name and or Azhar, but they're in villages and towns. They do not realize who teaches the children there, what is said to them. It's an image or the face of Azhar, but it's not under the supervision or control or monitoring. And the result was that we currently witnessed millions of those who sympathize with this thought. And they are a couple thousands, the whole organization, but these a couple thousand who swore to be obedient and swore on the holy book and the pistol, they're not a lot, they're just a few, but they are the core and the reason behind this tumor. And the rest of the people are the deceived people, because this is poor people and we have high ignorance and illiteracy and disease and poverty, and all these things weakened the immunity of the Egyptian society to accept and made it possible to receive any deception in the name of religion. It's a hopeless. It is a nation with no hope in life, and they are trying to find any exit, and they're trying to think of any other life to be victorious or to have better life in. And they say that they have services for the people through the hospitals and the distribution of oil and sugar. These small clinics and hospitals did not deliver a true service. You have them, they're still there in mosques, and they say the medical center of this mosque. As a doctor, and I work in clinics, and I see prescriptions. Some people go to these places first because of the cheap visit fee, and they have students working there. It's just a face to use the disease and the poverty and the weakness in society, and they expanded and they spread the thoughts. That's why a lot of people who sympathize with them in this assembly in Rabat, in this terrorist assembly in there, and there is somebody who's standing on the stage or on the theater to lie and to call or to instigate hatred and turn it into a battle between Islam and infidels.
Yeah, they participated in the crime against the Egyptian people. They are the cause behind this large number of people killed. Yeah, you have used in your article the phraseology that goes well with your profession. So the total eradication, what do you mean by total eradication of the Muslim Brotherhood? I feel disgusted when I listen to people saying, some people say, some people who were members of the group of the Muslim Brotherhood group, they are trying to justify what they have been doing and how to contain them again in the society, as if it is the fate of Egypt to have this organization. It is a fascist organization. The idea of this organization appeared at the same time when the Nazist ideas were promoted. But this group, Muslim Brotherhood, continued to exist. It need to be eradicated. The ideology of that Jama'a or that group need to be eradicated. You used the word al-Khuwan, which means the traitors, not al-ikhwan, which means brotherhood. When my father said to us before he passed away, and he was one of the scholars of Al-Azhar, he knew the reality about the Muslim Brotherhood, and he described them always as the traitors, not the brothers. Why do we insist that there may be such a group, or Muslim Brotherhood? There are some other Islamic propagation groups, or Islamic Dawah groups. They are there for quite a long time. Muhammadan Sunnah, the Young Muslim Association group, they are working in the field of da'wah or in the field of Islamic propagation. But the Muslim Brotherhood has a special organization within it. They were training people to master the art of struggle and fighting. No one can do what the Brotherhood did unless he is trained well. Where have they been trained? Who is capable of burning Giza Governorate building in half an hour? And the appraisal of the losses is more than 53 million Egyptian pounds. During the 25th of January revolution, they were trying to deal with the situation peacefully. However, those people from the Muslim Brotherhood are well trained, and they have the resources to put on fire the building, such as the building of the Arab contractors. One of them, to claim, one of them publicly said that it is a plane which destroyed and burned the building. They were implanted last year. Brotherhood elements were planted in numerous positions. And I really liked very much what Major General Sisi said. He said that everyone is required to talk to his neighbors and to ask them not to go with those people. The Muslim Brotherhood, they are doing something that is dangerous to the peace of our country. They are people who commit the crime of sabotage. A person who has any relationship to members of the Muslim Brotherhood who are part of the organization of the Muslim Brotherhood, who swear on the Holy Quran and on the Pistol to obey, to listen and obey. They have to be put under security surveillance and even be detained in order to ensure that they are not going to commit any crime against the society. We are passing through a stage that would not require us to have decisions that are not timely. When they are captured or arrested, they will turn into more dangerous people. It is more important not only to arrest them, but also to have a religious discourse and religious rehabilitation for the millions who sympathize with the Muslim Brotherhood. So what happened was because of a terrorist organization that was keen to seize power. The three elements that constitute awareness are education, media, and the religious discourse in the mosques. So those are the three elements that we need to focus on in order to be able to change the environment that may sympathize with them. We need not to use, it's not our fate to have such a group in our country. The present situation, we are in a state of revolution. The president should take a decision to dissolve the Freedom and Justice Party. I know some may object to what I am saying and may talk about the law and other things, but if one of them has seen the criminal acts of the Muslim Brotherhood members killing the police, the dignified personnel of the police who were only doing their duty, they have been killed, and their bodies were mutilated, as we have seen in Kirdasa. So anybody who has the good human feelings would not accept that. They commit the crime and they say it is not us, it is somebody else who committed those crimes. There were witnesses and they know who committed and perpetrated such crimes. What happened in Kirdasa was facilitated by Jama'at Islami or the Islamic group and the Muslim Brotherhood. So the religious discourse need to be changed, and people should know that this organization is not a fate on Egypt. There are many organizations doing Islamic da'wah, Islamic propagation, and assisting people in the field of Medicare. Also, there are churches who are providing those social services, and this need not to be under the name of an organization which has been preparing its membership to fight the people. The few days have witnessed a lot of developments, and if you remember, Dr. Muhammad Morsi, when he refused the idea that he may be the president, he also said that Egypt will be burned down if the election results were against this trend. He wanted to be the president. The revolutionary youth and young men and women have taken such a very good attitude. We have burned down one stage of the Egyptian history. The group would have continued to exist and to have deals with the existing governments, and would picture themselves as people of God, as men of God, until a day would come when they, in 1 year, in one single year, the Egyptian people, 30 million people took to the streets and said, we do not want the Muslim Brotherhood. The people who took to the streets are the people who elected or voted for Morsi. People went down to reject the rule of the Muslim Brotherhood. I didn't imagine that this number, because the people have seen how bad the rule of the Muslim Brotherhood was. Let me remind you, you was with Dr. Osama al-Ghazali Harb. That was in Dream channel with Mr. Hazem al-Mirazi. You together, Osama al-Ghazali and yourself were with me.
اللواء عادل لبيب وزير
General Adil Labib, Minister of Local Development. Aswan, 1.6 million. Red Sea, 100,000 Egyptian pound. And the state is very keen to apply the law, to implement the law against those who perpetrated these crimes on any piece of land in Egypt. May Allah bless our efforts and grant us success.
احنا طبعا ما سمعناش
We did not listen to the complete core of his speech. He talked about the losses in the governorates as a result of the violence of the Muslim Brotherhood members. I would like to blame General Adil Labib. His Excellency Adil Labib is very close to the picture. He was there during the reign of the Muslim Brotherhood, and he knows that many positions have been equanized. He was supposed after the 30th of June to take decisive decision without any hesitation, instructing the governors to review all the appointments where people from the Muslim Brotherhood were inserted in the local government. If he did this in Giza, we wouldn't have seen the crime of arson committed by the Muslim Brotherhood. The governor of Giza did not review people who were inserted by the Muslim Brotherhood in his governorate, nor the minister himself instructed the governors to review the people inserted into the local government. The burning of the of Arab contractors could be a result of having one brother of the leaders of the Muslim Brotherhood, Saad al-Husseini. I'd like to congratulate Dr. Mehwar because she has taken a quick move to review the situation, review the situation of the high-ranking positions in the ministry, and has dismissed those persons who belong to the Brotherhood. I want you to tell us a final word, taking into consideration the larger number of people who fall down martyrs and the state of terror in the society. Every day they are losing grounds. Every day they are drilling their own tombs by their own hands. Some of them might condemn what happened in Sinai and that they do not want this to take place. They always take the shape of angels and actually behave differently. That's what they always see and do. They worship God through that special armed organization within the Muslim Brotherhood. They will always say that we have not been responsible for what happened. And Beltagi once said that all the strife in Sina will stop the very moment Morsi returned to power, and if you remember the explosion of gas pipelines returned when Morsi was removed from power. Nobody will accept this. It is the same way of thinking. This is a terrorist group, and the state should devote its resources, the Ministry of Information, in order to provide the entire world with a true picture and to classify them as a terrorist organization. Hezbollah has been classified as a terrorist organization, and this applies as well to the Muslim Brotherhood. Hezbollah might be defending the Lebanese land, but this group is waging a war against its own homeland and are cooperating with the enemies of the country. The Arab countries, the respectful Arab countries, have taken the attitude, the good attitude with Egypt. Thank you very much, Mr. Tariq Al-Ghazali Harb, surgeon and writer and thinker. After the break, Haitham Saoudi will continue.